everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night for Wednesday, April the 9th, 2025. Sorry for the late. I was having some technical difficulty with Rumble, but everything seems to be good to go right now. So welcome to the show. Did Donald Trump play Canada, meaning the Liberal Party of Canada, and I guess to some extent Pierre Poilievre because he had to play along, and all of those elbows up people? Did Donald Trump play Canada and China like fiddles? The great Roy Clark. I think Donald Trump played us and China like a cheap-ass fiddle. And I'll explain why in just a second as we talk more about Chinese interference in this federal election that the campaign is going on right now for. And Mark Carney was quoted a couple of times in the last 12 hours or so, suggesting that he wants to keep gender-affirming care for kids across the country and that he doesn't want to lower taxes. He'd rather send our money overseas. We are not going to decrease foreign aid. Yeah. So I'll play those clips for you in just a couple of minutes. And Poilievre last night had another great rally in the Sault Ste. Marie tonight. He's in Brampton with another great crowd, apparently. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
It's amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
Am I going to turn blue like that guy from Jerry Springer? No, you will not. I get such a kick out of that question, and it happens more often than you know. Yeah, you're not going to turn blue. These particles are very, very small. They're like little silver blobs, very, very, very small, and they work through your body within 24 hours, cleansing it and youngifying it to make you feel and look much better. And there's so many great products at CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. And by the way, Kevin and Anna making their trek across the prairies from Calgary to Yorkton for the big Spring Expo this weekend. So on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they'll be at Gallagher Center, Home, Garden, and Leisure Trade Show. Friday from noon till 7, Saturday from 10 till 7. That's going to be a long day. And then Sunday from 10 till 4. Canada Nano Silver will be at booth number 9 if you're in the Yorkton area and feel like dropping in to say hello to CanadaNanoSilver.com this weekend. Hello, Anne. Hello, Bernadine from Calgary. Brenda's watching from Quebec. Hello, Brian and Linda from North Bay. Laura, Rumble's working? Excellent. That's good to know. Hello, Laura. Thank you for that little piece of news there. Michael is watching on Rumble now, and so is Lorna, I think, in Carnduff. Kevin, hello. How you doing? Paul, who are you voting for in this election? Just curious. Well, I think with this crowd that we get here on the regular, it's probably going to be between two parties. But you guys are making some comments about the fiddle. Yeah. I think probably the Conservative Party is going to win that little poll. But feel free to go ahead and write it down in the comments. That'd be interesting. Hello, Jeff from Tacit Investigations and Security watching the show tonight. Sandra is in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Anna, Darren, Lance, Christina, Carol, Marina. Hello, everybody. Don't forget to like and share. Get this out to as many people as you possibly can. Patricia, Diane, Susie Q, Chicken Hair, J. Rube, R. Jube is watching on Rumble tonight. Michaela, Bella, The Last Son, Tammy O Kid, Notable, Esky Dogs. Again, don't forget to like and share. Get this out to as many people as you possibly can, you guys. Thank you very much. All right. White House, and this is hilarious because this is the entire Liberal campaign. Without this, they really don't have much, and I'll demonstrate that for you in just a couple of minutes. From left-wing corporate CTV, although this is all over the place, this came down from the Associated Press, the Canadian Press, and then the CTV here. They say, our news staff wrote this. White House says Canada exempt from Trump's baseline reciprocal tariffs, but he did raise China's to 125%. Last night we heard it was 104% from Caroline Leavitt. And today, you know what? I think I've changed my mind on China. It's going to be 125%. And here is Donald Trump being interviewed talking about just that.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they've been talking about tariffs for decades.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker?
It says to the Chinese that their unfair trade policies have got to end. It says to the Chinese, this is a shot across your bow. Reform, because if you don't, there are going to be dramatic consequences.
How come when these Democrat elites want tariffs, everything's hunky-dory, but when President Trump wants tariffs, all hell breaks loose? Do you see this double standard?
I love this guy, whoever the hell that is. That's really nice. I appreciate that question. No, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, see, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. It's really, I think it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country is going to be. There'll be nothing like it, and people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before.
But the stock market's taking a beating. Actually, today was the best day on the stock market since 2001. All these people whining and crying about, what was it, 10 days maybe? Taking a beating on the stock market. Oh my God, we're going to lose our shirts. We're going to lose everything. And now it's way back up, and it's going to keep going back up. Because Trump, and I'm going to explain this, Trump lured China into a trap, and they went, they took the bait. They fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. China and Trump, well, Trump and the United States are at war with China economically right now, but not just economically. It's more than that. China has permeated the United States. And many believe, including myself, at least partially, that that's where this weird-ass communist ideology has been sinking into people through the universities. China has infiltrated the United States, but way, way worse in Canada. And we're going to get into that as well. Let's go back to this article for just a second here. Donald Trump authorized, and I don't know why this is in quotations. He's the president. He can authorize things. Donald Trump authorized a 90-day pause on some tariffs while vowing to raise levies against China to 125% effective immediately. It's not clear yet how those fees will be applied. I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately, the president wrote. Trump's explosive post sent markets surging, which have been prone to huge swings recently, not just day to day, but hour to hour. So here's Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent is the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, and he's going to explain exactly what this strategy was now that it's worked. Watch this.
This was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he'd go to China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Do you know that the only two countries who have retaliated against the United States tariffs are China and Canada? True story. And look at this here from Fox News. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Fox News tells us, here is every country working on trade deals with the United States. The White House is claiming more than 50 countries have expressed interest in working out some kind of a deal with the United States so that they can lower the pain. And here they are. Israel, obviously. Where else? Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba made a last-ditch effort to avoid auto tariffs from the U.S. last week. He's continuing negotiations with the White House. Like Netanyahu of Israel, he said he's willing to fly to the U.S. to make a deal. United Kingdom. Britain was hit with a 10% tariff, the least severe tier of Trump's wider tariff plan. Nevertheless, UK leaders say they hope to secure a carve-out in the coming weeks, but they said the relatively low tariff level was already evidence of some success. Business Minister Jonathan Reynolds says negotiations are ongoing, telling reporters that it's not accurate that the two sides have agreed to a deal. We've got to keep this work going, he said. And we heard last night that Donald Trump says we're not going to make a deal with the UK until they get rid of this censorship and stop arresting people for posting memes on Facebook and X and Instagram. Vietnam. The U.S. hit Vietnam with a massive 90% tariff. Trump announced on Friday that he'd already spoken to the nation's leader, To Lam. Trump said Lam has offered to completely eliminate all tariffs in a deal with the U.S., though no formal agreement has been made. Cambodia, Thailand, India, it wants to make a deal. South Korea wants to make a deal. Australia, the list goes on and on and on. Notably, Canada is on this list. Argentina, there's Canada. But that is strictly for political reasons, as we all know. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke with Trump personally in March before tariffs launched. They agreed that the U.S. and Canada would negotiate an economic deal after the Canadian elections take place on April 28th, according to Politico. But didn't Mark Carney also say the decades-long arrangement between Canada and the United States is over? He said that. I remember him saying that because my head almost popped off when he did say it. And this is Vigilant Fox summarizing the Scott Bessent clip here. 4D chess, they're saying. So while everybody else is playing checkers, Donald Trump is playing 4D chess. Markets rebounding after President Trump slapped a 125% tariff on China. So let's have a look at the stock situation here. NASDAQ soars to best day since 2001 after Trump pauses some tariffs. U.S. hit China with additional levies, put others on hold as trade war shifts. Look at that. Boom. So here's the weak part. This is where people were worrying, complaining, whining. Oh, my God, my future is ruined. Donald Trump, you're the worst. And then boom, one day. Best day on the markets since 2001. That's something I find very interesting. It's almost like he knew that this was going to happen. Remember this guy, Raw and Unfiltered? Well, he's got a new video out saying that he can prove that there is Chinese involvement in this election campaign going on right here in Canada. And here he is telling us about it.
Want to know what's really going on with this WeChat foreign interference? I can prove that the government is lying. I can prove that mainstream media is downplaying the situation. And I can prove that they are favoring Mark Carney. But now that the mainstream media and the government put out half-ass fucking truths, you got people pushing this out and attacking conservatives now. Government of Canada, mainstream media, especially global news, you guys should be a fucking ashamed of yourself. Let's show the facts, because I myself went on to WeChat, signed up for it.
Well, I'm sorry for the language here, but he's obviously worked up. Let's continue.
Gave my banking information just so I could bring you this story that no other journalist has done, including the garbage mainstream media. Let's start with this. This is the Government of Canada website, and it talks about the information for the WeChat targeting the 45th general election, okay? And they show you a screenshot of the evidence they have. They go on to tell you that it involves this person called Yulin Yuman. I probably hacked that. And he's got connections with the Communist Party of China. And then what gave it away for me to go and look up this information was these dates, March 10th and March 25th. Then they downplay it on how at this time the panel has determined that the activity is not affecting Canada's ability to have a free and fair election. This case is contained to one platform and has not spread further, nor is it affecting Canadians' ability to make an informed decision about their vote. Is that right? Because it got a heck of a lot of shares and a lot of views, and you don't know where it went after that. But we're going to get to the actual facts here in a minute. Then you got global.garbage.ca putting out their rhetoric to downplay the situation and make Carney look good. And they failed to mention that Pierre Poilievre was actually really cut up in that article. They made him look bad. As you can see here, they regurgitated what the government said. Then they threw in their own little twist and forgot to mention about Pierre Poilievre. Because we don't want that going around in the mainstream media, do we, global.garbage.ca? They state that the information operation had contrasting positive and negative narratives, first amplifying Mark Carney's stance with the U.S., and then targeting his experience and credentials. So for the record, before I show you guys the actual information, they talked a lot of good about Mark Carney, but they did talk down about Pierre Poilievre. And at the same time, this whole thing about negative comments about Mark Carney, it was literally like one negative comment. And it wasn't even really negative. And it wasn't about his credentials. So I took one for the team. I signed up to WeChat. I used my information. I had to use my credit card because they need to verify it's you in order to get on here. I tracked down the person using the name, and I tracked down the articles using the dates that the government gave us, which are here, which you can get off the government website. Here's the one article I'm going to show you, and I will do a long video after this with all the other information I got to connect Mark Carney to the Chinese Communist Party. I've got a lot of photos. I got a lot of information I'm going to share. And conveniently enough, on WeChat, you can go to those three little bars on the top, and you can translate every single article you want to read. So it made it easier for me. So to speed up the work, I had ChatGPT kind of analyze it and pick out the points for me and kind of give me the point of what's going on. So the government and the mainstream media both say that this article is positive and negative for Mark Carney. But they completely ignore what it says about Pierre Poilievre. Why? Because this article clearly states that Pierre Poilievre is a stupid candidate and labels him as Trump 2.0. That's not neutral. That's foreign political commentary targeting a Canadian candidate. And it's being dismissed. The government didn't tell you. Global News and all the other mainstream media didn't tell you. No, you had to hear it from some average person that just likes to read and dig into things to bring the truth to light so people can have the answer. If you didn't get who that is, that's me. So if it would have insulted Mark Carney like that, it would have been front page. This shows you how selective they are about what counts as foreign interference. Now, they did say a few bad things about Mark Carney, like his mocks his lack of political grounding and his awkward French, and they call him airborne prime minister. But other than that, the entire article is pretty much saying really good things about Mark Carney. Then if you start scrolling through all the social media on WeChat, you start seeing a ton of good things about Mark Carney. I don't want to spoil the rest. I got a full video coming out on this. Let me know what you think in the comment section and spread this out there. Doesn't take much to sign up for WeChat and find out everything the government knows. That's such a big secret. You need your top security clearance in order to see what's going on with WeChat. We don't want to tell too many people this, but we'll tell you this half-assed truth so then you just think the way we want you to think. So don't worry, guys. I will brief you because you don't need the top security clearance or have to wait for CSIS to tell you something months down the road like they did with this. Like 3 weeks later, they finally tell you because this literally happened March 10th and then March 25th. So they already knew. And if they didn't know, they were a little slow on the foreign interference. Or they just let it drag out to bring it out at the perfect timing. Don't trust the mainstream media, guys. Get rid of that bullshit. Tag them and make sure you tag them in this because people need to know what's truly going on and not just half-assed articles to persuade people's voting one way or the other. And that's exactly what happened here.
Raw and unfiltered. You can find him on X and on TikTok. Sam Cooper appeared today with Candace Malcolm on Juno News, and they were talking about Chinese infiltration as well. Here you go.
2019, the documents say, during the Mun Wanzhou case, these documents say that People's Republic of China intelligence employed a massively sophisticated operation targeting Canada's election, and they calibrated their support. This is key. The document says they favor the Liberal Party leader, Justin Trudeau, and the Liberals, but they calibrated their support among other parties, and it was to secure the release of Mun Wanzhou. So think about what happened. Mun Wanzhou indeed was released back to China. China, as we know from my reporting in the Globe and Mail, indeed interfered pretty deeply, I say very deeply, in 2019 and 21. The Hague Commission says not so deeply. I say the Hague Commission is just repeating the same narrative that we heard in that press conference on Monday. That is, China is agnostic in targeting Canadian politicians. Sure, they're agnostic and very sophisticated, but the Liberals are favored. Mark Carney is favored, as we just learned. I have just told you, my documents say that Justin Trudeau was favored in 2019. And Candace, he was favored for a long time. So we see that continuity. I'll add another data point that just popped in my mind. Mr. Carney's speech speaking about an admiration of China's system. Who else said something like that? Justin Trudeau should be back in 2016, raise some eyebrows with his admiration of the basic dictatorship of China and what they can achieve with that sense of government. And look, here's my final point. Who is benefiting from Canada going up against the United States? China is benefiting, and Mark Carney is benefiting, because the Liberal campaign is based upon really what is messages of anti-Americanism. And Candace, I'll be very refined in my answer. I think it's egregious that Canadians are facing tariffs, and yet I do think, unfortunately, Mexico and Canada are being used in a very sophisticated way by China to transship its products around the world, and that includes fentanyl precursors. So Washington and President Trump do have a deep state-level concern. Whether they've said a lot of things that frankly messed up our election, I think they did. But, back to your point, Canada and China fighting the U.S. in this global trade war, it looks horrible, and I think it is horrible.
How deep is this corruption, or how deep is the connection with China that even our own intelligence reports, even the people tasked with protecting Canada's institutions and exposing this kind of nefarious activities, that they have to equivocate and pretend that it's not as bad as it is, or pretend that it's coming from both sides when the evidence clearly shows that that is not the case? Should we be worried about our very agencies that are tasked with protecting Canadians and protecting our elections and our democracy?
Yeah, I'll answer very carefully. In short, what I do hear from highly connected officials and experts in America and Canada is that people of the greatest integrity in Canadian law enforcement and intelligence and their counterparts in the U.S. have had some concerns about senior government figures in Canada meeting with known suspected Chinese threat actors of the type that are involved in organized crime, of the type that are involved in the money laundering, which the U.S. government is concerned with, that moves, fentanyl, marijuana, human trafficking proceeds around the world. And sure, look, we've got, as some said, a baby step. Actually, I can say proudly, at least Canadians got disclosure this week that China at the highest level is targeting communities with disinformation that does favor, or if you take the government's view, target Mark Carney. But you're right. I and others that are very expert in this field say Canada's government and intelligence agencies at the bureaucratic level very certainly are watering down what their agencies know about the Liberals being favored. And you just have to be a smart reader and look at the data points to line up that very clearly China does favor Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, and a lot of politicians around him.
It's exposed. It's out there. People know. The left-wing corporate media is shameful, not doing their jobs. China is infiltrating our elections. How they're doing it? Through social media? Yeah, obviously. But they're doing it in different ways as well. These polls, not all, but many, are dubiously connected in some way to Chinese financing, let's say. We covered that last week on the show. Although I can't explain any of the other ones. I mean, for polls to turn like they have, considering they never do that. New leader, old leader, it doesn't matter. They may change a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I mean you get a 5-point swing here, maybe a 10-point swing there. But the Liberals in many of these polls have got, remember when they were low? They were sitting at 19, 20, 21% for a long time. And then suddenly to shoot up to 45 and 50% even in some polls, how is that possible? How is that possible? And then you look at where these polling firms are getting their money from, and many of them are getting their money from the government of Canada. We don't know exactly what department is funding this. Could it be coming from one of the slush funds that the Liberals had set up over the past 10 years? Billions are missing. We don't know because of all the scandals. But where'd all the money go? Is some of it being filtered to the polling companies to favor the Liberals? Is China contributing? Remember I showed you a couple of weeks ago the list of donors for Justin Trudeau's last campaign in 2021 in Papineau? All the names, every single name of the hundreds of names on this list were all Chinese. Now, of course, because there are campaign contribution limits, they were only able to give $50 or $100 each. But every single name on that list was Chinese. Make no mistake, the Chinese are definitely supporting the Liberals. And we know Mark Carney's connection to China. Definitely in many ways, supporting Mark Carney and the Liberals in this election. So what we need to do is find every single conservative-minded person in this country, and on April 28th, we go to the polls and we vote. Plain and simple. Because when you look at Pierre Poilievre and you see these rallies that he has been hosting, and watch the size of them grow and grow and grow. From the Winnipeg rally, which they say was 3,500, to me, I was there. Well, I was there kind of. It looked more like 1,500 or 2,000. I didn't really know the location. It was in some old warehouse by the airport. But in Edmonton the other night, between 10 and 15,000 people. In Sault Ste. Marie last night, a city of 74,000, they're claiming to have had 2,000 people. The room was packed, and here is an excerpt of what Poilievre said in the Sault last night.
This is breaking news. Mark Carney was asked point blank if, as Prime Minister of Canada, he would condemn tax havens, international tax havens in the Caribbean, where multinational corporations stash their cash to avoid paying what they owe. Now, for the first time in the history of Canada, a Prime Minister was unwilling to condemn these international tax havens for multinationals and billionaires. Just today, he dodged the question just like he dodged his taxes. And you know why? Because he's in a conflict of interest. He has billions of dollars of his company assets stashed away in Bermuda in a post office box above a bicycle shop. You know, he didn't put the money there because it's nice weather in Bermuda. He put it there because Bermuda is known as the most flagrant tax haven anywhere on earth. And his company has been called Canada's biggest tax dodger. Now, that would be a terrible thing for him to have in his past, but it's not the past. It's the present. He continues to have millions of dollars invested in this company, which is hiding its money away from paying taxes. So let's get this straight. While the police officers here in the Sioux, or that waitress who's struggling to feed her kids, or the small businesses that are hanging on by a thread, are forced to pay high Liberal taxes, Mark Carney, our Prime Minister, is still invested in tax havens that dodge his bill. My friends, that is not putting Canada first. That is not the change we need. We need a new Conservative government that will put our taxpayers first for a change.
It's amazing to see that many people continue and not just keep the same levels of attendance. And remember, Sault Ste. Marie is a city of about 70,000 and 2,000 people. Or more. That's an incredible turnout for a politician. People are hungry for change in this country. The polls are absolutely out there. I do not agree with them. Something is wrong with them. I believe they're being interfered with Chinese money. You can prove it to an extent, but then the trail goes cold. The Liberals are cheating in any way they possibly can. Barbara Ball is the Conservative candidate in Nepean, which is a riding in Ottawa, which is where Mark Carney is chosen to run, and she put out this video yesterday.
Nepean, it's Barbara Ball, your Conservative candidate. In a democracy, the right to free speech is sacred. It's common knowledge that the Barbara Ball team is very organized. Our signs were up very early in the campaign. Many of our wooden stakes are marked with blue tops and NCA for Nepean Conservative Association written on them. Now, we are discovering that hundreds of our signs are missing. We have found many of our signs in the garbage. We have also discovered empty holes and, in other instances, wooden stakes with blue tips and NCA written on them, bearing my opponent's red sign. When people resort to criminal behavior, they are undermining the democratic process itself. This is unacceptable. Our community deserves better. We must stand united against such actions, which tarnish the democratic ideals that we hold dear.
Wouldn't it be great if we could get some of these Liberal volunteers or whoever's doing it, probably Chinese Liberal volunteers, hammering on the Chinese tonight. Look, again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm coming off sounding like I hate Chinese people. I do not. Obviously, I don't. It's the communists and the government of that country and how they treat their own people. I don't blame any Chinese people for coming over here to Canada for a better life, but we want to be able to give them that better life. We want to be able to give them that Canadian life. And it's looking more and more and more like China over here, isn't it? But getting some of these volunteers or whoever they are stealing these signs or replacing Conservative signs with Liberal signs, and it's obvious that Barbara Ball's a former cop. So maybe this was her idea, to paint the tops of the signs blue so that they could see when the Liberals try and replace Conservative signs with Liberal signs. Oh, I see somebody's been busy. If we got them on video, Carney would have to come out at that stage and say, "Oh, I absolutely condemn that. There's no place for that in Canadian politics." He would have to say that. But I wonder if it's going on in more than just his writing. And the other thing that I'm noticing that makes me go with these polls is that the Liberal bots and politicians on social media seem to be getting more and more and more desperate, somehow coming up with ways to condemn Pierre Poilievre by taking a 3-second clip of something he said at a rally from 2 weeks ago or even 2 years ago and trying to use it against him. Like, they've got internal polling that we can't see. So I believe what we're seeing is that smoke screen. They're trying, again, these are depression polls, sometimes they're called, right? Where they try to diminish the momentum of the other side with polls that show their side so far ahead, it looks like there's absolutely no way that the other side can come back, which means that some of the people who may be voting for the other team would go, what's the point? I'm not going to go out there and vote. It's cold, it's raining, and they're going to lose anyway, so my vote's not going to matter. That's exactly what these polls are designed to do. But how can there be any enthusiasm for a guy like Mark Carney? All he's doing is regurgitating Pierre Poilievre's ideas 24 hours later. And he's not a very exciting candidate, is he? And now, with Trump's tariffs on a 90-day pause, nobody is talking about them. You don't hear Poilievre talking about Trump so much anymore. Now it's talking about building Canada back better, if you'll pardon the expression, so that we can take on the Americans from a point of strength if we do come to blows with them in the next couple of years, which I really doubt is going to happen, let's be honest. Come on. Come on. We're going to need time to build ourselves back up from the last 10 years of liberal rule. But Donald Trump played Mark Carney and the Liberal Party and all these elbows up people like a fiddle. So what else does Carney have to talk about now? We can still talk about the threat of U.S. tariffs and how they're going to impact people and how we're going to come up with special government programs for everybody. And, oh, yes, even though we're not going to call it universal basic income, we're going to throw out universal basic income for you. And we're going to build modular homes. Come on, man. Mark Carney now has to start talking about some of the issues of the day without talking about the threat that Donald Trump poses to our nation. Here he is being asked by a reporter if he would reduce foreign aid from Canada. Here's what he said.
Mr. Carney, would you cut foreign aid from the current ODA and financing levels? And what is your broader vision for Canada when it comes to global development?
Okay. So the short answer is no. My government will not cut foreign aid, and we will be releasing our platform soon, so you can see that. That is a direct contrast to Mr. Poilievre, who will not just cut foreign aid, but taking his cue from the Americans, he will eliminate foreign aid. He will eliminate foreign aid to those most affected around the world, most punished around the world. He'll eliminate foreign aid by extension to the Middle East, to Ukraine as well, and he will.
Listen to how he talks. He rambles and then he slows down, and there's a lot of ums and ahs. He'll
eliminate foreign aid to those most affected around the world, most punished around the world. He'll eliminate foreign aid by extension to the Middle East, to Ukraine as well. And he will use the money for other purposes, presumably for tax cuts, which is normally what he does.
Okay. So are you campaigning for Pierre Poilievre, Mr. Carney, at this stage of the game? He's gonna. I mean, that is like mother's milk to any conservative out there right now. He's going to reduce aid to Ukraine. He's going to reduce aid here. He's going to reduce aid there, and then he's going to use it for tax cuts. Like, how is that a bad thing?
Around the world, most punished around the world. He'll eliminate foreign aid by extension to the Middle East, to Ukraine as well. And he will use the money for other purposes, presumably for tax cuts, which is normally what he does when he cuts programs.
I think he's an idiot. I mean, with all of his credentials and that resume and everything that he's been doing for the last 25 years, you know, special UN climate envoy, CEO of Brookfield Asset Management, governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England, I think he's an idiot. Or does he actually believe that people want these high taxes and people want their money going to the Middle East or to Ukraine? Is he insane? Like, what world does this guy live in? It's amazing. Oh, and here's the other thing. Remember, he's got a daughter that went through gender-affirming care. So he was asked today by a gay-sounding reporter if he would get rid of gender-affirming care.
platform hasn't said anything about LGBTQ Canadians. We're here in Alberta, where the province wants to restrict healthcare for transgender people, and they want the Canada Health Act to defend their access to gender-affirming care. Would you do that? And what is your party going to do about the backsliding that we're seeing for gender and sexual minorities?
Okay, so first of all, that question comes with a false confirmation bias. Alberta does not want to eliminate or minimize health care for transsexual individuals or whatever. They're just saying, I'm sorry, up until the age of 16, you cannot have any body parts chopped off. That's all gender affirming care. It's nonsense. It's complete and utter nonsense. And we're paying for it somehow. So this guy, I assume, asking this question, asking Mark Carney how he feels about it. And listen to Carney's answer here.
Health care for transgender people, and they want the Canada Health Act to defend their access to gender affirming care. Would you do that? And what is your party going to do about the backsliding that we're seeing for gender and sexual minorities?
Thank you for the question, Dylan. Let me start at a fundamental point, which is, our Canada is a mosaic. We are all Canadians, but we all have different identities and distinctions. And one of the great strengths of this country is recognizing that people can be who they are, they can love who they love, they can live where they want to live. And it's fundamentally important that the federal government is the defender of those rights, defender of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And access to health care in Canada is not a business, it is a fundamental right, and we will defend it.
So he's talking about healthcare in general. Is he talking about 14-year-olds getting their boobs lopped off because they're following a trend?
It is a fundamental right, and we will defend it. For all Canadians without exception.
So I wonder, because now that that's out there, I'm wondering if all of these people in the middle, right, like the people who said they were voting conservative maybe 3 months ago, according to the polls now might be voting liberal. I wonder if hearing Carney talk about that stuff is going to make them go, oh, wait a minute. That's what Trudeau said. And I don't believe in that nonsense. You got to wonder. And look at this story, came out today. The White House says, like, things are so different in the United States. And we're right next to them. How can that even be? The White House says it will not respond to reporters who list identifying pronouns in their email signatures. And there's Caroline Levitt looking all angry here on Fortune's website. The White House is refusing to answer questions from reporters with preferred pronouns in email signatures. Several officials have cited policy in doing so, but it's unclear if that is personal or official. Reporters from the New York Times and other outlets have experienced the snubs. The Associated Press isn't the only news outlet that's having trouble getting access to the Trump administration. Because, take out your stupid pronouns. We don't want to see that. Hi, I'm Dave, he, him. Shut up. They're not even answering emails. They're refusing to answer emails from reporters who list their preferred pronouns in their email signatures. Several officials have responded to queries with non-answers, citing the pronoun addition to signatures. Caroline Levitt, White House press secretary, wrote a reporter saying, as a matter of policy, we do not respond to reporters with pronouns in their bios. Take them out. Your name is Stacy? I think you're a woman. All right. Doge senior advisor Katie Miller, in reply to another reporter's question, wrote, as a matter of policy, I don't respond to people who use pronouns in their signatures as it shows they ignore, now this is great, as it shows they ignore scientific realities and therefore ignore facts. Adding in a separate email, this applies to all reporters who have pronouns in their signature. Whether that's an official White House policy or a personal one of those officials is unclear. Other outlets beyond the Times say they've experienced the same non-responses when pronouns were added to signatures. And it reminded me of the great Billboard Chris. This guy who, in case you haven't heard of Chris, he goes up, Chris Elston is his name. He goes around the world. He wears a suit and tie. He looks very clean cut, and he puts a billboard on. And the billboard says, gender-affirming care is a lie, or whatever he chooses to put out that day. Children should not be allowed to decide if they want their body parts removed, that sort of thing. Well, last September, Billboard Chris got the opportunity to address the United Nations. And here he is.
I'll give the floor to Alliance Defending Freedom.
My name is Chris Elston, and I'm here to speak for children being irreversibly harmed by health professionals practicing what is falsely referred to as gender-affirming care. It is not caring to stop the development of children with puberty blockers. These are repurposed chemical castration and cancer drugs. It is not caring to alter their development with opposite-sex hormones. Every systematic review of the scientific literature shows that children are being harmed and that scientific rigor is non-existent. Activist organizations pushing ideology have hijacked the medical community, and what is being done is nothing more than a live, unregulated experiment on kids. It is one of the great deceptions of our time to teach children that they might have been born in the wrong bodies. Affirming care would be to tell them that they are beautiful just as they are, no drugs or scalpels needed. Instead, children are being sterilized and are having healthy body parts cut off. Overwhelmingly, these kids are autistic, have other mental health comorbidities, and many have suffered trauma or abuse. Girls as young as 12 are having their breasts removed, and 16-year-old boys are being castrated. State encroachment on parental rights is worsening outcomes. Here in Geneva, a child was taken from her parents because they refused to transition her. Children have the human right to grow up with their bodies intact.
Kids can't make these decisions. You know, they still can't buy an adult magazine, for goodness sakes. They can't buy liquor. You can't drive until you're 16 years old. There's still so many age restrictions out there, and for good reason. They're not able to do these things. They're not responsible enough. Their brains haven't matured yet. As a matter of fact, brains don't completely mature until the age of 25, from what I understand, according to everything I've read, which means maybe we should be putting up the voting age. You know, the NDP and the Liberals, all the lefties, the progressives everywhere, they start talking about bringing the voting age down to 16. I think we should put it back up, put it to 25. Remember, things used to be 21 way back in the day, and then they started reducing them to 18, 19 in some provinces and some states. But to reduce it to 16, come on. And we're talking about something that is irreversible. You know, they say this gender-affirming care and all the steroids they pump these kids up with. Puberty blockers. And they actually have the nerve to sit there and look at you in the eye and say, no, you can reverse that. You just stop taking them. No, I'm sorry, man. I mean, we've heard from detransitioners that it just doesn't work like that. And that detransition movement seems to be gaining steam as well. But how on earth can we allow these kids, these little kids, to make these kinds of decisions when they can't even walk into a liquor store and buy a bottle of booze? And when you throw that up to a progressive, when you say that, they just look at you like you've got three heads because they've been indoctrinated. Oh, speaking of indoctrination, I found a video of the instructor who teaches the young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. And we're going to put that up in just a couple of minutes. There's something going on in Britain right now. Let me put this up on the screen. From BBC, Labour MPs are calling for digital IDs now to tackle migration. Create the problem, have the solution. Oh, look at, there's too many people here. Now we need digital IDs to keep track of everybody. Huh. Very, very, very interesting, isn't it? Exactly what we expected. More than 40 Labour MPs are urging ministers to introduce a new form of digital ID to help control the migration system and improve public services. In an open letter, Labour MPs from three groups said a gear shift was needed to reap the benefits of digital identification. The idea of digital ID for all has long been backed by former Labour Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair, of course. He's a WEFer as well, a WEFer as they like to call themselves. And former Conservative leader William Hague. I wonder if he's one too. But the BBC understands the government has no plans to introduce mandatory digital ID. Good news, at least for now. So what is going on in the UK? The Great UK National Strike, I believe it's called, being spearheaded by a former British military officer called Richard Donaldson, who put this video out this morning.
Great Britain is under attack. You and I, right in this very moment, we are under attack. This is a message to black people, to white people, brown people, to people on the left, people on the right, whoever you are. If you are a legal citizen of the UK, this video is for you. On the 24th of May, we are holding a nationwide strike, the Great British National Strike. You see, I believe in a Britain that is proud of its accomplishments and of its heritage, a Britain that protects its people, a Britain that thrives, a Britain that we all loved and recognised growing up. But that very concept seems to be getting stripped away from us at an increasingly alarming rate. I say to you all today, it's time to turn the tide. It's time to stand together and to take back control of our future. For too long, we've watched as illegal immigration has overwhelmed our borders, with thousands arriving on our shores every single year, unchecked and unaccounted for, putting unbearable strain on our communities, our schools, our hospitals and our economy. Do not misunderstand me. We welcome those who come here legally, who contribute, who respect our laws, but we cannot and we will not accept those who break our rules, exploit our generosity and threaten our safety. Please let me be clear, this isn't just about numbers. It's about the impact of forcing incompatible cultures to live together. In short, you cannot accept large numbers of unvetted, undocumented fighting age men into our country when they refuse to speak our language, live by our way of life, respect our laws and actively seek out small, white, underage girls for their sick, twisted pleasure. We've seen crime rates soar in our towns and cities. We've heard the heartbreaking stories of families torn apart by violence, of communities living in fear because of lawlessness and rape gangs. The British people deserve better. Our children deserve better. What sort of world will we leave them if we don't stop behaving like cowards and stand up? We deserve to feel safe in our own homes, on our own streets, and in our own country. Illegal immigration is just one piece of the puzzle. We're facing a two-tier justice system that seems to favour the few over the many. In just 2 days' time, white men will be subject to tougher sentencing guidelines than anyone else. It's racism. The voices of ordinary Brits are ignored whilst others are given a free pass. We're battling policies like net zero that burden our farmers, threaten our food security and drive up costs for families already struggling to make ends meet. We're funding foreign conflicts like the Ukraine war, while our own people go without, while our own veterans sleep on the streets, while our NHS waits for the investment it so desperately needs and never seems to get. Enough is enough. The time for complacency is over. The time for division is over. And today, I call on every single one of you to join me in this great British national strike, a movement to say with one voice that we will not stand idly by while our country is brought to its knees. We will not let our values, our heritage, our future be eroded by those who put their interests above ours. There are some very, very dark times coming. This is not a call for chaos. This is not a call for hatred. This is a call for lawful, peaceful and united action. We are better than division, we are better than violence, and we will use our voices, our collective strength to bring about change. We will march to our city centres and we will petition our leaders. We will hold them accountable. We will show the world that the British spirit, the spirit of courage, of resilience, of fairness cannot be broken. I'm asking you all today, will you please stand with me? Will you stand for your neighbours, your families, your communities? Will you stand for a Britain that puts its people first, a Britain that secures its borders, that restores law and order, that supports its farmers, that invests in its future?
The Great National British Strike, you can find them on X if you're interested, is coming up next month. I'm wondering exactly how many people are actually going to act on this. I'm hoping it's millions. The UK has got a population roughly 62, 63 million on those little islands. Yeah. I think it's probably way more now. I think that's what the strike is about in the first place. But I'm wondering exactly how many people are fed up like Mr. Donaldson, the guy who did that video. I think it's probably in the millions. Elon Musk the other day commenting on what the hell's going on in Europe.
Clearly seeing a massive increase in the number of attacks in Italy and broadly in Europe. And the media, the legacy media, downplays these attacks. But the attacks, the terrorism, the killing of innocent people is rising. Every week there's more. And it's more and more. And eventually, I think we're going to see widespread slaughter in Europe. That is the trend. If you simply extrapolate the trend of what is the rate at which the terrorist attacks are occurring in Europe, and put those points, it's basically deadly attacks versus time on a graph, and extrapolate that graph, it leads to the slaughter of Europe.
One thing I like about Elon Musk, and there's many things to like about him, there's also many things to question about him, is he's just such a straight shooter. He calls it like he sees it. And if you look at a straight graph, you're talking about the slaughter of Europe. Now, Canada, different situation, different landscape, obviously, not as many people. But many people are jammed into small spaces in large cities, and it's only a matter of time. We've seen these Palestinian protests. It's only a matter of time before things get truly out of control here. And are the police going to do anything about it? I don't know. It's all part of the plan at this stage of the game. Now you've got Pierre Poilievre talking about law and order and taking back our streets, safe neighborhoods, afford a home, all of that stuff, under a proud banner, whatever slogan, versus Mark Carney, who just keeps the same policies, the same hug-a-thug liberal policies in place, wants to let kids lop their boobs off or whatever, all their junk, wants to keep giving our money out to the Middle East and Africa and wherever for gay dance recitals, transgender beauty pageants. This is an easy choice. Don't forget, Mark Carney is a big part of the World Economic Forum. I'd like you to meet Wadya 8 Hamza of the World Economic Forum with over 20 years of experience in international relations and community building. Wadya has worked at the intersection of international cooperation and development, public affairs, building communities, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Wadya has helped build multi-stakeholder collaborations. Also notice that Mark Carney is talking about public-private partnerships, and that is the fourth industrial revolution that Klaus Schwab has been talking about. We need a great reset. Wadya has helped build, and stakeholder capitalism. Wadya has helped build multi-stakeholder collaborations on climate and environment, digital inclusion, mental health, education and skills, COVID-19 response and recovery. So that's the guy, Wadya 8 Hamza. And here he is instructing a new class of World Economic Forum young global leaders. But I would suggest it's more of an indoctrination process. Watch.
Warm welcome for many of you to the World Economic Forum headquarters. This is where the magic happens. And you are part of that magic. Feel the magic in these walls. Feel the magic that many leaders, many communities are bringing so that we can come together and create impact that we want in this world. What most of you don't know is that we took a long exercise to work with our advisory board, with our foundation board, with different stakeholders to really refine what's our mission statement. We know that the YGL community is a dynamic accelerator of a dynamic community of exceptional leaders who have the vision, the courage, and the influence to drive change. And we have a mission. And this mission is that we are a diverse community that inspires and connects extraordinary leaders in their efforts to build a more inclusive and sustainable world. That's who we are. And I would like by this occasion to thank all the members of the Foundation Board and the Advisory Councils who've been with us in this exercise and really helped us to narrow what are the low-hanging fruits and the sweet spots where we can do more, where we can achieve more, where by bringing all the exceptional leaders that you are, we can create something meaningful for our community, societies, local communities, and beyond. And that's what we do as daily activities. We select you, we connect you in our gatherings because we want to transform you. We select you because you are an exceptional leader, but we believe that you have the potential to even be better. And this is the space for it. This is where the magic happens. And the work of the YGL community comes within a framework. And that framework is the framework of the World Economic Forum. The idea of the forum is to be an incubator of projects. Have you heard of Gavi, for example? Gavi was a project that was launched in Davos some decades ago, and now it's by itself an organization. There are, as I said, hundreds of these. I'll highly encourage you to check out this, because you can be engaged in these projects, and that's where the forum brings all the stakeholders so that we advance the mission of the forum. You are all privileged, right? You're all privileged. Just by being in this room, you are privileged. And you should not be ashamed of your privilege. But you should be ashamed if you don't use it for a purpose. And that's important.
So all the normies out there are saying, well, what does the World Economic Forum have to do with anything? What is he just told you. Not only do they incubate people like Justin Trudeau and all of these other world leaders or CEOs or national central bankers, but they create programs from seeds of ideas that actually become organizations on their own. And following the principles of the World Economic Forum and their sustainable development goals and their fourth industrial revolution and their private-public partnerships and their sustainability programs, they want to transform the world. They want to transform these young people watching into their minions, into their apostates, so they can keep doing the work of the World Economic Forum. And notice how it's all covered up in flowery language and inspirational vibes. You should feel privileged to be here. So one day, we can take over the world. All right, that's it for the show tonight, you guys. Don't forget to like and share. Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can. And please consider becoming an all-access member at shadowdavis.com. If you do, you get all the extra content. We got part 5 of Europa, The Last Battle, coming up tonight for all you all-accessers. And you'll have a chance to win the brand new Shadow at Night Live coffee mugs, 20 ounces. There you go. That's what it looks like. And on the other side, it gives you Truth Matters. Or you'll have a chance, your choice, to win the Shadow at Night Live baseball cap. It's up to you. We start giving these away to all access members tomorrow night, but only all access members at shadowdavis.com. The extension is coming up in just a couple of minutes. I love you all. I appreciate you all. I thank you for being here, and I will catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another show. And all access, I'll see you in 2 minutes. Bye for now.